Journalists and news channels have sold their souls, transforming journalism into a vehicle for biased agendas. They prioritize emotions over facts, disregard opposing opinions, and become defensive when confronted. But what happens when their devil-constructed narratives are challenged by undeniable logic and hard truths? There are 10 times when woke reporters went disrespectful and were swiftly humbled down, beginning with the moment when a reporter attempted to trap Vivek Ramaswamy with her stupid question, and Vivek responded with a bold, unapologetic, and truly epic answer. Something that'll make you love Vivek even more.
I'm not going to recite some catechism for you. I'm against vicious racial discrimination in this country. So I'm not pledging allegiance to your new religion of modern wokeism, which absolutely fits the test. I'm not going to bend the knee to your religion. I'm sorry. I'm not asking you to bend the knee to mine, and I'm not going to bend the knee to yours. But do I condemn vicious racial discrimination? Yes, I do. Am I going to play your silly game of gotcha? No, I'm not. And frankly, this is why people have lost trust. And I know you're going to go print the headline tomorrow. I already know this. We already know how your game works. Vivek Ramaswamy refuses to condemn white supremacy because you asked a stupid question. The reality is, I condemn vicious racial discrimination in this country, but the kind of vicious and systematic racial discrimination we see today is discrimination on the basis of race in a very different direction. You want to know what the best way is to end discrimination on the basis of race? Stop discriminating on the basis of race. Do that and we're going to move this country forward. And I don't care whether you're black or white or brown or anything in between. That's how we're going to unite this country. You people have been responsible for dividing this country to a breaking point, creating a projection of national division. I meet people from the south side of Chicago to meetings like this one of every shade of melanin, multiple, from man to woman, doesn't make a difference, who are hungry for reviving unity in this country. And you, with your catechism that you try to get to politicians to whatever fake headline you're going to print on the basis of this conversation tomorrow, that's what's dividing this country to a breaking point. Shame on you.
These fake news channels are largely responsible for the growing social and political divide in this country, often promoting misleading narratives to serve their own agendas. That's why it's so satisfying to watch someone like Vivek Ramaswamy confidently stand up and challenge the nonsense of woke culture with clarity. While Vivek showed his frustration, Pierre Poilievre reacted differently when confronted with tough questions from a reporter. The reporter attempted to trap him with a series of sharp accusations, but Pierre turned the situation around using sharp wit and undeniable facts, leaving the reporter struggling to recover.
I mean, in terms of your sort of strategy currently, you're obviously taking the populist pathway.
What does that mean?
Well, appealing to people's more emotional levels, I would guess. I mean, certainly you tap very strong ideological language quite frequently.
Like what?
Left wing, this and that, right wing. I mean, it's that type of ideological thing.
I never really talk about left or right.
Anyways,
I don't really believe in that.
Okay, a lot of people would say that you're simply taking a page out of the Donald Trump book.
Like which people would say that?
Well, I'm sure a great many Canadians, but
like who?
I don't know who, but
well, you're the one who asked the question, so
yeah.
You must know somebody.
Okay, I'm sure there's some out there, but anyways, the point of this question is, I mean, why should Canadians trust you with their vote, given not just the sort of ideological inclination in terms of taking the page out of Donald Trump's book, but
what are you
also
talking about? What page? What page? Can you give me a page? Give me the page. You keep saying
in terms of turning things quite dramatically in terms of Trudeau and the left wing and all of this. I mean, you make quite a it's quite a play that you make on it. So I'm
not sure. I don't know what your question is.
Okay, then forget that. Why should Canadians trust you with their vote?
Common sense. Okay. Common sense for a change. We're going to make common sense common in this country. We don't have any common sense in the current government.
It quickly became apparent that the reporter hadn't done any homework on Poilievre before the interview. Poilievre didn't get angry or insulted that man. Instead, he calmly and clearly dismantled the questions without any hesitation, all while casually having some bites of an apple. For years, the fake media has twisted stories and misled millions of people, but they can't escape the repercussions forever. Eventually, they had to face the consequences.
Why are you supporting someone who's been found liable for rape? I just answered your question.
What is the answer?
He was not found guilty in a criminal court of law. It was sexual abuse. It wasn't actually rape, by the way. And E. Jean Carroll joked about all the money she's going to get and made a mockery out of this case. And I think that's offensive. There's a reason why women don't come forward. And when you have someone who says that they're and make a mockery out of this civil court judgment, it's offensive to other women. It makes it harder for other women to come forward when another woman has made a mockery of it.
You said women don't come forward because they are afraid. They are afraid because
they're
they're defamed
and shamed,
by those
like you're trying to shame me this morning.
They are afraid to come forward, as you said, because they are defamed by those who commit the. That's what Donald Trump has been found guilty of doing.
He defended himself over that and denies that it ever happened, but he was not found guilty in a criminal court of law.
Their biggest mistake was targeting Donald Trump, because right after that interview went live on TV, Trump filed a defamation lawsuit against ABC News. Fast forward to today, the case has been settled, and ABC News was forced to pay a massive $15 million to resolve the lawsuit, while George Stephanopoulos had to issue a public apology. The same fake media has spent years attempting to leg pull Donald Trump, but they failed badly every single time. Just like in 2016, when a biased woke reporter took Trump's past statements out of context in an attempt to trap him, but Trump once again exposed their hidden tactics.
What you said to him was, I'm very pro-choice, I hate the concept of abortion.
Correct.
But I'm very pro-choice.
Why didn't you read that? By the way, why didn't you read that before?
I pulled it up the why.
No, but why didn't you read that before? You didn't read, I hate the concept of abortion.
I'm reading it to you. My question
Excuse me.
Are you a trustworthy
Excuse me, very trustworthy. More so than you. Because you know what? You didn't read the question. See, when you quoted Tim Russett, you didn't read what you just said. Read it again.
I'll read it again. I'll read it now. I'm very pro-choice. I hate the concept of abortion.
Okay, you didn't read. Why didn't you say, and when you asked the question before, that I hate the concept of abortion?
Because the question from the pro-life group can't be trusted.
You were quoting Tim Russett, and you were quoting, you were quoting Tim, and you were quoting me. Why didn't you read my quote the way I said it?
Sir, I tried to pull it up, and I didn't have Wi-Fi.
Well, then you got to get Wi-Fi, okay? Don't ask me questions like that. You're not a very good reporter doing that. Okay.
The lack of remorse shown by the woke media proves that they are deliberately pushing an agenda. Another example occurred on ABC News when Jonathan Karl tried to corner Trump by questioning Republican Senator Tom Cotton about Trump's pro-life abortion stance. Once again, they tried to manipulate the narrative, but as always, it backfired.
Speaking of radical changes of heart, I want to ask you about what Donald Trump had to say just a couple of days ago. He said, and this is an exact quote statement he put out, "My administration will be great for women and their reproductive rights." Is he now going to be campaigning on abortion rights? What's going on here?
He will be great for women. He was great for women. Women had great opportunities under Donald Trump. You had a healthy, growing economy. You had safe communities, and you had...
But I'm asking you about the reproductive rights.
Democrats can use phrases like reproductive rights all they want to describe their pro-abortion position, which would force Americans to pay with tax dollars for abortion up to the moment of birth. That's the Democratic position.
I mean,
they can use that phrase if they want to. They don't get a monopoly on the language to cover up their radical positions.
But I just asked you, it's now Trump using those words.
But he's
reproductive rights. But he's also said, we also heard from J.D. Vance, that he would veto a national abortion ban, and he came out against using the Comstock Act to prevent the shipping of the abortion pill. So what is happening? I mean, in fact, he said just the other day, he suggested that he may support the amendment on the ballot in Florida to provide a constitutional right to an abortion. I mean, what is happening with Trump on abortion?
So, John, I think you just made a very important point. The only candidate here proposing a national abortion law is Kamala Harris. And we know what that law looks like because congressional Democrats have voted on it. It would require taxpayer funding for abortion up to the moment of birth.
That's not their law. They don't want to codify Roe v. Wade.
No, that's not at all. That's what they say about their law, John.
I'm asking you about Donald Trump, though.
So first on,
you have a solid pro-life record for as long as you've been in public office. What do you make of what he is saying now, saying he is going to be protecting reproductive freedom, and then he could even support a constitutional amendment in Florida,
first off,
legalizing abortion?
I voted on the law. You didn't. It does not codify Roe. It goes far beyond what Roe says. It would provide taxpayer funding for abortion up to the moment of birth. Donald Trump has been consistent. He said that Roe v. Wade was wrongly decided. Before Roe v. Wade, this question was largely regulated by the states. Now that Roe v. Wade has been reversed, it will be again largely regulated by the states.
Did you notice how Jonathan interrupted every single time Cotton mentioned the Democrats? They were constantly defending Kamala Harris and shoving political virtue in our butts. But what happens when a woke host tries to corner a comedian? You need to watch this clip because, during a Buzzfeed interview with Jerry Seinfeld, things were going all well until the host asked Jerry why he predominantly invited white guests. The host seemed intent on pushing a woke narrative, but Jerry's unexpected response completely dismantled this attempt.
The guests are mostly white males of 22 episodes.
Yeah, let's get into that.
No, but you
take a look over here, Peter. What do you see? A lot of whiteys. What's going on here? Oh, this really pisses me off. But go ahead. It really pisses me off. People think it's the census or something. I mean, this has got to represent the actual pie chart of America. Who cares? It's just funny. You know, funny is the world that I live in. You're funny, I'm interested. You're not funny, I'm not interested. Okay. And I have no interest in gender or race or anything like that, but everyone else is kind of with their little calculating, is this the exact right mix? You know, I think that's, to me, it's anti-comedy.
Jerry handled it perfectly. He mocked and dismissed the host. This is exactly how to deal with such nincompoops, demonstrating how creating issues out of nothing can backfire on your face. Jerry's reaction exposed the absurdity of trying to inject a racial angle into a comedy show. The level of absurdity from some of these stupid reporters is becoming a serious issue. This is especially evident in an interview where Reid questions Tiffany Justice.
The question I'm asking is, what is the expertise that you have and other Moms for Liberty advocates have to decide that a book, an award-winning book like All Boys Aren't Blue, isn't appropriate for students to read? What is your expertise?
What a tragic story of a young man who's anally raped by his adult family member. So you have incest, rape, pedophilia. Joy, you said you'd let me answer, so
sure.
I'm going to answer
Please
for
do.
you. In what context is a strap-on bill acceptable for public school? I mean, that's my question to you. Tell me what the context around the strap-on dildo or the rape of a minor child by a teacher.
Hold on a second.
No,
wait,
we're talking about public school.
One moment.
All right.
So now you've asked me questions.
Sure.
I'm going to answer it.
Okay.
I'm going to answer your
Great.
question.
I would love to hear that.
Absolutely. Well, I'm interviewing you and you're not interviewing me. So let's just make sure it's a conversation.
Okay, great.
So what I'm saying to you is that as you are not an expert, in this book,
I don't have to be an expert to know that dildos aren't appropriate for public school. I mean, come on, let's get real.
This book is a full context story, as you said, of the author's experience. Why is it your right or a Moms for Liberty activist's right to say that a parent who wants their child to have access to this book, which gives a personal experience of this author, why doesn't a liberal parent, for instance, or a parent of an LGBTQ kid, why don't they have a right for their child to just have access to this book? Why is it your right to say they can't?
So, again, we're talking about incest, rape, and pedophilia.
And each parent, each parent has to decide what is appropriate for their child to read. So I want you to answer, I'm going to ask you one more time.
Right.
What is your right to tell a parent who wants their child, who might feel seen by this story, why don't they have the right? Why don't they have the right as a parent to say, my child can have access to this book?
If a child feels seen by this story, that means that they have been the victim of a predator. That means that they have either been raped by a family member, they've experienced
and your proof of that is what?
Reid's skepticism about Tiffany Justice, a mother of 4, having a say in her children's education is utterly nonsensical. Parents absolutely have the right to express their views on what their kids are taught. This growing tension is a major factor behind the increase in homeschooling, as more families aim to protect their children from what they see in this woke doctrine. Similar to his case, another woke reporter, Benjamin Butterworth, sparks controversy as he debates Belinda over the topic of gender-neutral bathrooms. proving how disconnected from reality some of these perspectives can be.
Well, you don't agree with this policy from Kemi Badenoch, though.
It's pretty weird in the deepest economic crisis we've had for decades that there is a government minister who is obsessing over where some people pee. I mean, Belinda, where do you think they were peeing?
Don't trivialise it. You're trivialising
this. Little to you. You don't know what it's like being a girl at school or being a vulnerable woman in needing a safe space to run to.
I've never ever said they shouldn't have them in school,
you've just said that it doesn't really matter because of the cost of living, or why is it so important?
Where do you think they peed?
It matters to us.
Where do you think they peed before?
Where do I think they peed before? I've only ever known single-sex loos in nightclubs.
So where do you think transgender women peed before?
I think there were a tiny amount of transgender women before. Now the trans spectrum has become so vast.
Where do you think
it includes rapists and pedophiles and every sexual deviant. No, I'm saying it now includes that.
How dare you say trans people are
I didn't.
She did not say
that. No, I said the trans spectrum has been expanded so much, and it does a huge disservice to genuine trans people.
Does that match Ofcom rules?
No, I didn't say that.
Did you listen to what Belinda said?
You just said the trans spectrum has extended to rape.
Extended to include the worst sexual deviants who hide under the umbrella, which does a huge disservice to trans women.
But there is evidence, Benjamin, of trans rapes, for example, in hospitals using that to women. There is evidence of that, Benjamin. This is not a made-up story. And so the
rapists don't need a door to stop them. People who are rapists are repugnant and heinous, and people who are rapists, you know, the man that the woman in Clapham, he didn't need to go into a female toilet. He needed to put on a police uniform. The man that those two girls in the 2000s, the Ian Huntley, he didn't need to go into a women's toilet.
But do you not understand?
He just needed to pretend to be a caretaker.
Society has been conditioned to stop women complaining about men being in their bathroom.
Didn't need to go into a women's bathroom. He needed to look like a respectable member of society.
Of course not.
So the idea
and there's lots of ways to protect women in society.
I'm not saying trans people are. I'm saying the trans spectrum now shelters them. You're completely misquoting me because you cannot defend.
Benjamin seems to believe he understands women's needs better than women themselves, despite the fact that the issue doesn't directly impact him. It should ultimately be up to women to decide what works best for them, not for someone else to dictate their choices. If you enjoyed this video, check out my other videos and let me know what do you think about this topic.